Hi, I'm Vinita Mehta, and I'm a clinical psychologist here in Washington, D.C. Today I'll be talking about some different kinds of challenges that we're facing and some strategies we can use to get through them. When we think about how to cope with feelings like fear, stress, anxiety, grief, at a time like this, even though it's unprecedented, we have tools and strategies that we can put in place to try to cope the best that we can with something that we've never dealt with before. One of the things I've heard come up quite a lot in my practice is, I just don't feel motivated. And this is absolutely to be expected. So if you think of your brain like a computer, and there are a whole bunch of programs open, we've got a really big program that's open in our brain right now, which is thinking about this existential threat that has turned our lives upside down. When you have a program that is taking up so much memory, the other parts don't run as fast as they used to. I would also say that on social media in general, everybody really just wants to show how great their lives are. And so it may be helpful right now to limit social media use if it's making you feel not so great about where you are. If it's helping you to connect with other people, then I think that that's a great thing. There are some other tips about how to be able to harness what energy that we do have. Set a routine to give allotments of time to the different parts of our day. Another thing that we can do is we have something that we call pleasant event scheduling. We plan for events in the future that we look forward to, because how we feel about the future actually has a lot of influence over how we feel right now, today, in the present. And another thing that I would say is this is a time for self-compassion. We're all up against a very big threat with a lot of uncertainty. So remember to say to yourself that this is very proportionate to what is actually being experienced. The complaints around sleep, especially now, make a lot of sense. One of the things about what's happening right now, because we all have to stay home, is that we may not be getting the right kinds of cues of light to help us signal that, okay, the day is beginning to wind down. Specifically for sleep, routine is really helpful. To go to bed at the same time every night, and to wake up at the same time every day. And if you really only have to choose one, the research shows it's what the time that you wake up every day is really the one to go with. To put your screens away at a certain time in the evening is really helpful. The issue of sleep is of particular importance because it helps to keep our immune system strong. And if there's one thing that we all need to be paying attention to, is to stay healthy and to keep our immune systems as strong as we can. So right now, we're all feeling a lot of stress and anxiety, and it might be manifesting itself in different kinds of somatic complaints like headaches or grinding our teeth. Maybe we might be feeling some achiness. And this is where we can look to different kinds of self-care. We can begin to pay attention to things like diet and exercise, staying connected. One of the things that we can do is meditate. That is really helpful, just to begin to slow the mind down. Some people say, it's really hard for me to just sit there and think of nothing. If you're one of those people, what I would suggest is to actually find a meditation where there is a voice that you can follow throughout. Another really helpful kind of hack is deep breathing. And the trick with this is that we breathe deep from our bellies, really from the diaphragm. The reality is that we forget to breathe. It is so important to breathe deeply. When we're under stress, our stress response system gets kicked off. We have two systems. One is the sympathetic. We can think of that in terms of stress. And then we have the parasympathetic. We can think of that as peace. If we breathe deeply, it kicks off the peace nervous system so that we can just bring all of our hormones and the energy down. Right now, we want to stay informed. We want to know what's going on. And so we look to the news, of course. We are animals that are looking to survive. So we look and we scan into the environment to see what could be a threat. It kind of feeds us in a certain way, but at the same time, it raises our anxiety. But the cycle is very hard to break. One way that we can do that is to actually limit and plan when we're going to watch the news. I will look at the news from 8 in the morning till 8:30 in the morning. Another way to stay informed could be to look at sites that give straightforward information without the sensationalism. People are struggling with coping with issues over which we have no control. This kind of uncertainty can give rise to a feeling of helplessness. One way that we can take a bit more control back in this situation is to identify what we actually have control over. We only have control over ourselves. This may be a time for what we call radical acceptance, to be able to just sit with ourselves and say, this is something that is just bigger than me. But here are the things that I can control. I can set up a routine. I can call somebody that I love. I can meditate. I can carve out times in my day to do things that make me feel good. Okay, I'm staying indoors and this is my way of helping, but it feels so incredibly inactive. Reframing the understanding that we have, staying at home is an active form of giving to other people. But these are the ways that we can begin to think of the things that we do as actually incredibly active and incredibly impactful. As humans, we have social brains. The one thing that we are so wired to do, which is to live in groups, is the one thing that we actually can't do. The best thing we can all do right now is to feel connected. But obviously, we have to do that online right now. Relating to people online is just not the same as actually being with them live. When we are actually face-to-face with people, hug, or we sit close, we get an oxytocin spike. That feels good. What we might be feeling right now is just not the usual levels of oxytocin that we're used to. It's not the natural way of having close relationships. I think that one thing that we can do to be able to manage that, we can do a bit of mental time travel to keep it into perspective. Let's think of a time of when that can happen and know that this isn't forever and that what we're feeling is absolutely normal. People are feeling really stretched. Right now, this might be a time to remember that in some ways, everybody gets a pass, and that everybody is so stretched that it's really hard, as we say in the mental health community, to bring your best self forward to the table. Another way to make sure that we're navigating our relationships the best that we can is to just pay close attention to what it is that we're feeling. Staying aware of how it is that you feel will help in guiding you, not only in terms of being able to give to yourself, but also in terms of giving to others. Something that we're all probably going to have to do over and over and over again in these next months, is to give a reset and to be able to communicate with the people that are close with us about where we're at. As life begins to return to normal, it's going to be a new normal. There are a few ways we can think about combating this kind of anxiety. We can look to clear information about what it is that we can expect. We are going to have to, for some time, stay 6 feet apart. We're going to have to wear masks. The more we know about what it is that we can anticipate will help us be able to better manage our anxiety, because at least then we can have a picture of what it's going to be like. This is what we call imaginal exposure. We can begin to imagine what life is going to be like and to give ourselves almost like a trial run in our minds about what it's actually going to feel and look like. And if it's hard to kind of go at it all at once, think about just taking it piece by piece. First, I'm going to go out for a walk and I'm going to see what that's like. And then I'm going to go to the market and maybe I'll just go there for 5 or 10 minutes and I'll see what that's like. And you just keep on building up your reserves, feeling okay again in these familiar places until it doesn't bring up as much anxiety. A lot of what I've been hearing about lately is just loss in general. Loss of a job, loss of an identity, loss of a graduation, and that's going to be very painful. A lot of people have lost loved ones and they're going to be grieving. This is era defining. The grief that people are going to be feeling is going to be lasting for some time. One of the main ways that people get through grief is by relying on each other. Just be there for each other. And that can take different forms. And I would also say that the mental health community is going to be here so that there are places that people can find the kinds of help that they're going to need. What we keep hearing about the pandemic is that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's going to be a journey. So if you're feeling stress and anxiety and perhaps depression, it's very proportionate to the actual situation that we're experiencing. This is an unprecedented health emergency that we just did not see coming. What I often say to my patients is, if life feels hard, it might be because right now life actually is hard. This is a time where we may feel so stretched. It's time to just say, I'm going to give myself a break, or I'm just doing the best that I can. And to remember to stay connected with other people and to talk with each other about what it is that we're really feeling. Because again, there is no way out of this than together.